In the original Cyberpunk 2077 media, the trauma team was one of the most talked about details from the game, and it got attention for both positive and negative reasons, as it was one of the few aspects from the game that seemed not only realistic but was actually something that was more than likely possible considering the situation for medical care in the United States. But the speculative scenario is this: could an average person afford the trauma team? CD Projekt specifically created the trauma team in a sort of satire-based response to the tumultuous and often overlooked situation of healthcare in the United States of America. In terms of care or treatment with medicine, globally is often universal or subsidized, but in relation to the United States, it is often overpriced or needlessly complicated with the average American's concerns to their health. But analysts and critics of Cyberpunk 2077 later remarked that the trauma team was an eerie prediction for what could theoretically occur for what healthcare might be like for Americans in the future. Trauma team was founded in the Pacific Northwest of the United States at an unknown time. Estimates held it that it was shortly around or before the year of 2020. Due to the tense political and social situations in the United States at the time, it quickly grew from a small company to a massive corporation within the country. Speculations had it that it was a private venture that provided guaranteed care and protection to those who needed it and could spare no expense in terms of money for care provided or assistance to a medical facility from a dangerous place that they had been injured or hurt at. Due to the dangerous aspects, former military and law enforcement personnel were hired to be the protectors and escorters for trauma team clients. Business models from varying years provided care for clients on payment plans for based expenses with clients and for the team responding to the call to use trauma team based specialists. Additional details help the trauma team even began operations in Canada shortly after the establishment in the United States. And interestingly, while Canada had a measure of universal health care, governmental policies later abolished it and replaced the method of care in Canada with an American equivalent. Due to the slow but stable success in the United States and Canada, trauma team later expanded into regions of Europe and even Japan. From dialogue mentioned in-game, no one in Night City technically had any health care. People could try and make do without such, and a majority of the population did. Only those of substantial income, high tier status, or means actually had access to the trauma team's coverage and services. If an individual mentioned that they had trauma team care, then they were undoubtedly someone who was extraordinarily lucky or extraordinarily connected within Night City. One of the first missions that the player experiences as V is an assignment that specifically focuses with the trauma team, but due to the circumstances of the original release of 2077, it was the first and only occurrence in the game that the trauma team is depicted in outside of lore or random appearances. It wasn't specifically mentioned in 2077, but heavily implied that Victor was a former specialist from the trauma team due to his advanced medical knowledge. Speaking of the trauma team in certain situations or scenarios, and in particular instances with V, even having trauma team equipment within his own medical facility. Due to the trauma team being underutilized or even underrated in 2077's original release, it became a main aspect in the series, with main character David's mother dying, and due to circumstances depicted in the story, it was later known that if she had better care, then she would have undoubtedly lived. But as a result of the lack of care, she died. A horrific but realistic fact from American life that was accurately mentioned in the series. Considering the fact that even basic coverage on benefits can be beyond a good amount of the American population's reach or affordability, it's realistic to imagine that a decent amount of the population wouldn't be able to afford real aspects of care. From after the game was originally released, discussions had it that the trauma team concept could easily become a reality and not just remain a fictionally based idea from a video game.